Hello, my name is Sarah. I'm a small artist and I'm definitely not wearing a wig right now. This is Justice for Artists. You know the tea is about to be crazy if I have to put a trigger warning at the beginning of the video. I'm just gonna jump right in to Van Gogh's life story. We're gonna start with a family tree, but don't feel like you need to memorize this or anything. This is mostly just to show you the names in the family. So obviously we have Vincent. You'd never guess that's the main person we're focusing on in this video. And Vincent has 5 siblings. Theo, Cor, Elizabeth, Anna, and Will. Their parents' names are Theo and Anna. Theo and Anna met because Anna's younger sister and Theo's older brother ended up getting married. And that older brother, Vincent's uncle now, his name is Vincent. And that younger sister on Anna's side, her name is Cor. And then we got, just wait, Vincent's grandfather, so Theo's father. You're never gonna guess what his name is. It's fucking Vincent. Do you know how difficult that makes a research project when everybody has the same name? For the sake of this video, when I'm referring to Vincent's brother Theo, I'm just gonna say Theo. If I'm referring to his father, Theo, I'm gonna say his dad. So that'll kind of clarify it a little bit more. Mauve is also a big character in this story. That's Vincent's second cousin. Okay, I need to find my notes because there's so much tea. So just to give you an idea of the timeline we're working with here, Vincent is born in 1853, 4 years after his younger brother Theo is born. Vincent is homeschooled for a little while and then his parents send him off to boarding school, which made him feel like, oh, so you hate me and you don't want to be around me? You're abandoning me? He asks to come home and his parents are like, you need to give this life thing a try. So we're gonna send you to middle school in a completely different town. And while he was there, he was miserable. He took art classes that he couldn't focus on because he was so depressed. He ends up abruptly returning home. Then his uncle secures him a good job at an art vending place. And this place is fancy. His mother came from a wealthy family that had ownership in this big company. Once his training was done, he transferred to London to do the same job. By the age of 20, he was earning more than his father. At this point when he's in London, his mental health is doing pretty well. He's having a good time there. He enjoys his job. He enjoys being there. But after a little while, he ends up being frustrated with the commodification of artwork there. So basically, just the basis of commercialism rather than the meaning of the art. It's just that money aspect was being prioritized. So he's like, hell no, and he starts expressing his concerns. He gets fired. Then in 1876, he takes an unpaid job as a supply teacher at a boarding school, which is really crazy because he hated going to boarding school. He ended up leaving to try and become a Methodist minister's assistant. His father was a Methodist minister. He returns home from London and initially plans to just be there for Christmas, but he ends up staying for 6 months. He worked at a bookshop. At this point in time, he was very depressed. And he would spend his free time either drawing or translating Bible passages between English, French, and German. That's crazy. My man is trilingual. He becomes a vegetarian and becomes more religious. In 1877, he moves in with his uncle, which studied theology, so this man knows a lot about religion. And Vincent goes and he wants to go to that school that uncle went to. Well, he takes the entrance exams and fails them. Then when he ends up going to missionary school, my man fails out. Regardless, he ends up getting a job as a missionary in a coal mining town. He was living in a bakery and then gave up that home to a homeless person and slept on straw in a shack the whole time he lived there. The priest that was above him says, "You're undermining the dignity of priesthood by being low income?" by being low income. Okay. Then his parents pressure him to move back home. When he moves out, his parents are so concerned that they're saying he needs to go to an asylum. He ends up moving in with a minor, with an E, not an O, not a young, no, a minor, someone who minds. Okay. He starts drawing even more, and he connects more with his brother Theo. And Theo tells him, keep pursuing art. This is a part of you. This is important. So Vincent ends up attending an art school where he studies anatomy and modeling and perspective. He ends up going back home, moving back in with his parents, and he tries to sell his work at art vending markets. Now, his second cousin Mauve was super successful in selling art, so we looked up to him as almost like a mentor. When Vincent temporarily stops going to the art place, Mauve says, "You should practice charcoal and pastels." One day, while staying with his parents at home, he overheard them saying that his persistence is disgusting. His persistence is disgusting. So this man takes his left hand and he goes up to like a lamp that's like lit with fire, and he just puts his hand there. And there's this pitch that he doesn't like. And he's like, "I'll remove my hand when she leaves." Oh my god, T? What? He's like, "Get her out of here." Now, he ends up having an emotional blackout, so he doesn't remember this at all because he was so caught up in the emotion. But after all of this happens and Vincent is returning to the art place, Mauve says, "Okay, I'll take you on as my student." And then he introduces him to oil painting, and he gives Vincent a bunch of money so he can build his own studio. He also introduces Vincent to watercolor. I don't know what he was doing in those art classes if he didn't know anything about these mediums before, but who am I to judge? Actually, I went to art school. I think I can judge. Well, thereafter, Vincent can only afford models who are like prostitutes. And Mauve finds out that Vincent has started seeing one of those prostitutes who has a problem with alcoholism. Vincent also ends up developing a problem with alcoholism. Mauve finds this out and he's like, "Hey, actually, I never want to talk to you again." The drama's crazy. But this drunken prostitute, her name is Cian, and she's pregnant when she meets Vincent. But then her dad insists that the baby is Vincent's, even though that timing doesn't line up at all. So Cian's dad hates Vincent, and Vincent's like, it's not, I mean, but and the kid's name is Willem. Just like we're just back in the family tree. Why do they all have the same names? Well, after Cian's not being paid to be a model anymore because her and Vincent aren't allowed to be within each other's vicinity, and they broke up after dating for a while. And Cian gives her children, one to her brother and one to her mom. That's a bit, I don't know. And I mean, I'm just questioning the fact that they described her as an alcoholic, but she was pregnant this whole like first portion that Vincent knew her. That's not okay. And then she drowns herself in a river. Vincent starts to feel really lonely and he moves back in with his parents. A few years later, Vincent meets this girl Margot, who he's like, "Damn, girl." But she is like, "I'm in love with you, don't leave me ever." So the dynamic there is not the healthiest, you know. But then they ask their parents to be like, "Can you give a blessing for us to get married?" And their parents are like, "What the fuck, no." And then Margot tries to overdose and Vincent has to rush her to the hospital. The next year, Vincent's father dies from a heart attack. He's dealing with a lot right now. Theo promises Vincent that he'll put his art out for the market and for exhibits. And when Vincent's like, "Hey, so you said you were gonna do that and you haven't done that," then Theo's like, "Yeah, so your paintings are a little too dark. They kind of kill the vibe." In August of 1885, for the first time, Vincent has his work in an exhibit. Vincent's models, now hang on, I want to preface this by saying I did not know this when I bought all of these, okay? These are just calendar pages. But listen, I did not know this information when I got this, okay? But he had a few models for drawing that end up getting pregnant, and one of them says, "He forced himself on me," which is horrible. My camera died. So, wow, yeah, we just found out that Vincent is kind of probably a predator, which is why I wanted to clarify that I did not know this information when I bought merchandise. Okay? Okay, I'm sorry. But he ends up moving out of the town because the priest was like, actually no girl should ever talk to you. And like, I get it. The priest said never talk to any girl ever. And Vincent, low-key cowardly move, but at the same time, I feel like it's a good thing he did this, but he moves. He gets out of that town. He said, so then he lives in poverty and he is not doing well. He gets sick because he never eats. His teeth are getting loose and painful. Theo gave him some money for the art studio and he ended up spending it all on art supplies. Vincent studies color theory and then also becomes an alcoholic again. He's hospitalized for alcohol poisoning. Once he gets out of the hospital, he goes to a higher level art school. But being overworked, having a poor diet, lacking sleep, and excessive smoking and drinking, he became very sick again. Now in that higher level of art school, Vincent had an assignment where he was supposed to draw the Venus de Milo. And, well, if you don't know what that is, look at this fucking dope tattoo that I got. I love this tattoo so much. Anyways, that's Venus de Milo. And instead he drew a peasant woman with the missing limbs in the same outfit. And his teacher took that as defiance. He already wasn't a fan of Vincent's work, and then he sees this and he's like, oh, so you're mocking me now? So Vincent ends up having to repeat that grade. And like, he didn't even get expelled. Oh my god, there's so much more. So he draws the limbless peasant woman, turns it in, the professor's offended, and the professor takes a crayon and just scribbles all over to the extent where the paper is torn. Vincent gets really mad at this, and he stands up in front of the class. Listen, he had a right to be angry, but he says something along the lines of, women should look more ready to carry a baby than this beautiful, wonderful, lovely, wonderful, beautiful woman. So then he moves to Paris, and he shares an apartment with Theo. He becomes very invested in woodblock prints. Over his time staying in Paris, he collected hundreds of woodblocks. And then they talked about these like little art trades where these people would paint portraits of each other and then give the other one the portrait. That's kind of sweet. Theo says that living with Vincent is unbearable. When Vincent moves out, his relationship with his brother becomes a lot better. Now he still lives in Paris, so him and Theo still hang out sometimes, and they end up making this friend, Paul Gogh. And let me tell you, Vincent practically has a crush on this guy. But Gogh is one of the people that the art swap was done with. By the time Vincent leaves Paris, he's completed more than 200 paintings, and then also has around 100 drawings and watercolors. Gogh tells Vincent that he's going to come visit. Vincent paints 4 renditions of his sunflowers for Gogh to prepare for his attendance. Okay, Vincent. To Theo, Vincent says, I'd like to do a decoration for the studio. Nothing but large sunflowers. And then Gogh, the guy that Vincent is low-key obsessed with, he ends up being so arrogant. He just ends up being an asshole. They fought a lot and Vincent was really scared that Gogh was gonna leave him. There's more than 600 letters from Vincent van Gogh, and those at the time are like text messages, so we got the receipts. It's crazy. Over time, Theo ends up owing Gogh money, and Gogh thinks that he's being exploited or used for his money, so he up and leaves and abandons them just like Vincent thought. He's starting to go delusional because of alcohol poisoning, and then at the same time he's having hallucinations and he's hearing these voices in his left ear, and it gets so unbearable. Another emotional blackout. That's when he cut off his ear because he was like, I don't want to hear these voices. I can't do this. I never knew the reason behind that, so I don't know. It was kind of crazy to find out just kind of the rationalization behind it, almost. Now he takes his ear and he wraps it up in paper and he brings it to who is essentially a prostitute, just hands it to her and then leaves. That's terrifying. He bandaged up his ear, like this side of his head first, but that's terrifying. But this lady is one that Vincent and Gogh would frequent, and once Vincent leaves, he starts to bleed out and he passes out outside, and police end up finding him. So police end up finding Vincent and they rush him to the hospital, and he is on the brink of death, but they end up being able to save him. At this point, it's too late for them to reattach the ear, so he just goes the rest of his life without a left ear. Gogh finds out and tells Theo, and Theo's like, oh my god, I'm catching the first train there. I need to be there right now. So something important was going on in Theo's love life, but he was like, I'm dropping everything. This is Christmas Day, where Theo comes to comfort Vincent. Christmas of 1888. The delusions of poisoning and hallucinations get worse, and then he lives in a neighborhood where 30 people have signed this petition to close his house, to shut down his house, forcibly evict him. They called him the red-headed madman. He ends up going to an asylum, and while he's there, he paints a portrait of one of the doctors. And the doctor takes it and uses it to clean a chicken coop and then gives it away. And now that painting is worth $50 million. Vincent was granted 2 cells when he was at the asylum, so he turned one of them into an art studio. There were very limited options as far as drawing. There wasn't a whole lot of subject matter for him to draw. At this point, a lot of his paintings are of nature because he was allowed 1 supervised walk every day. He ended up being very depressed, and he had his parents mail him old sketches that he had drawn so he could make new renditions of them. He gets out, relapses, and then ends up getting his art in an exhibit where Monet says that his pieces were the best in the show. As he leaves the asylum, Vincent says, "The canvases will tell you what I cannot say in words." Honestly, I'm not sure how much I can say on YouTube, and I am not trying to make light of this, I am just trying to not get in trouble. But he takes a pew-pew, and he pew-pews. Paramedics begin to save him, and he's okay for a couple days, but then his health fails because he has organs that were punctured. So on the 29th of July, he passed. And his last words, "The sadness will last forever." That's so awful. He said it to his brother. He said it to Theo while Theo was sitting right next to the hospital bed. That's a really sad note to end it on. So that's the tea. Bye.